Deep Dive with Dr. D. This podcast has one main goal: to help you to see that within you, you have the amazing potential to do great things. Dr. D gives information based on his full life experience, going from the streets to living the amazing life he has today. Hi, everyone. For tonight's episode, I want you to act as if. Act as if you are in treatment for a substance use disorder. You're in an inpatient facility, and I, Dr. D, have come to give a lecture. So, take your seat, take notes if you like, and get ready for the lecture that I give when I go to inpatient treatment centers. So the first thing that I want everyone to know is that it is only because of access to resources that I get to live an amazing life today. There was a time in my life where I was in and out of jail. I was on the streets, couch surfing, committing crimes, doing all of the things that we do when we're in active addiction. I, like you, have been in inpatient treatment. I've done it twice. And I always like to ask the question, who's first time in treatment? And I like to ask the question, who's been in treatment before? And it doesn't matter to me whether you've been in treatment once, this is your first time, or 100 times. I'm here to give you hope. I want to give you hope that you can turn this around. Whether you're young or old, I always like to ask, who's the youngest person in the room and who's the oldest person in the room? It doesn't matter to me whether you're the youngest person or the oldest person or somewhere in between. You can do this. See, I want to leave you with a message of hope. And I like to interject things as they hit my brain. And one of the first things I want you to understand is that you are not powerless. I know that can rub some counselors the wrong way when I say that, but you are not powerless. For me, when I was in active addiction, prior to having any knowledge about recovery and ways to support my recovery, yeah, absolutely, 100%, I was powerless. When I, after being in recovery for over 10 years, made the conscious decision to return to use, that was not powerlessness. That was me making that conscious decision. But once I re-engaged with drugs and alcohol, yeah, there was some powerlessness there. But I have some beliefs on that too, right? Alas, I want you to know that you're not powerless. You're here, right? You are in treatment and you are now gaining or regaining, relearning information on how to support your life in recovery. You are not powerless. You have a lot of say in your life today and in your life for the future. So who am I, right? Who is this guy? On the screen you see it says that I teach, I'm a college professor, and I founded a great organization that supports people in recovery, and you see that date. Because of access to resources, through treatment, through counseling, through job opportunities, through education, a plethora of things. I haven't had to drink or use drugs since March 25th of 2007. And man, I am super grateful for that. I'm highly involved in the community I live in. My wife and I live in Ellensburg, Washington, and I teach. I say my day job is I teach at Central Washington University. I get the opportunity to teach young people and help them earn their degrees and have success while they're there. I also founded a recovery community organization that is thriving and doing well in the community. My wife, who's also a person in long-term recovery, she runs and operates a preschool in our town. We're highly involved in the community we live in. So those are, some cool things that I get to be involved in and some cool things that I've done and that pay the bills. But the really important things for me are those roles that I get to participate in my life today. Today in my life in recovery, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm a husband, I'm an uncle, brother, friend, mentor to many, right? And I used to live a life where I wanted and I dreamed of and I hoped that I would be able to be a good husband. I have been a shit husband along the way. This isn't my first marriage. It's my last marriage. I tell my wife, this is it. You got me for the duration. But I'm a husband to my wife today. I have not had a relationship with anyone else in the 13 years except her. That never was the case for me in relationships prior. Infidelity was common. Always giving up was common. My wife and I are a team in everything we do. We've known each other for over 20 years. We've been together as a committed couple for 14. We're in our 13th year of marriage, and we have a solid relationship today. And we both individually live our lives in recovery in unique ways. And I'm going to talk about that for you. I'm a father to my son today. My son and I, we talk nearly every day. Whether it's through a text message or him coming by the house or a phone call. And here's the really cool thing. My son is a person in long-term recovery. He'll have 11 years this coming May. I'm highly involved with my son and our life together. I'm a grandfather to 2 boys. I call them grandson number 1 and grandson number 2. Grandson number 1 is 14 and grandson number 2 is 9. And I'm highly involved in their lives. I'm an active participant in the roles I get to participate in. I'll talk about my circle of influence, my suggestion for you to have a strong circle of influence. And I have strong friendships in my life today. Strong friendships. I'm mentored and I get to mentor others. So while I love that I get to do some cool things to earn a living, what I really love is that I get to participate in those roles in my life that are really important. And the tagline that I like to use in my life, and I like to just tell people all the time, is that recovery works, lives change. I'm going to talk about some things today that are really cool that I get to do in my life. I'm going to talk about the roles I get to participate in like I just did. And it's not to sound pompous or arrogant. It's to give you hope. Like if this guy from the streets of Tacoma who was couch surfing and in and out of jail, if I can do it, I know you can do it. I always like to say I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I work on a college campus and I have colleagues that are much smarter than I am. But the one thing that I have that I know many people who navigate a path to recovery have, that is tenacity, grit. I just don't quit. I just keep going. So what I want you to consider is, one, have you given your all to drugs and alcohol, right? Have you put your full forth effort into drugs and alcohol? Most people go, yeah, I have, right? So here's what my challenge for you. Take that same energy that we used to put into finding, seeking, using drugs and alcohol, and all the behavior that goes with it, and I want you to take that energy and put it toward your life in recovery. Commit to saying, you know what, each and every day I get up, I'm going to put forth the same effort that I put toward active use, I'm going to put it toward a life in recovery. And my educated guess is that your life's going to improve. Because if this guy can do it, and my life has improved in the massive ways that it has, I know yours can. I used to have a Department of Corrections number, a jail number, right? I used to be a convicted felon. I carried the convicted felon moniker from the mid-90s until 2010, right? That's a previous life to me now. I don't live there now. I always say your past is really important to learn from, heal from, and then leave there, right? I live in my life now in those really amazing roles I get to participate in, and the roles in my family that I get to be an active participant in, and the fun I get to have in recovery, and the challenges that I get to go through in recovery. So think about your past. Being in treatment's a great time, as you are, to start peeling the onion of your past, right? And this is just a dip. Remember, treatment is just a dip. There's work to be done when you leave treatment, right? Engage with a mental health therapist. Talk to your doctors, right? Do some of the things that I'm going to suggest to you today. That work really begins when you leave treatment. This is a great place when you're in treatment to start peeling the onion of your life. And I'm going to give you some tools today, some things to consider as you progress through your life in recovery. And one thing I talk about is the wheel of recovery. I'm really, really very much into a whole life, a holistic view on a life in recovery. Certainly, especially early recovery, you might have strong engagement in support groups, right? Whether it be Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Smart Recovery, Buddhist recovery, could be through your church, it could be Celebrate. I don't care what it is. You likely might have high involvement with those. But hey, here's what I say. I don't give you permission. I don't give you permission when you leave treatment, or even if you're not in treatment. If you leave treatment, I got to remember I'm saying this like I'm giving it to people in treatment. So when you leave treatment, I don't give you permission to just sit in the rooms of a support group. I do not. May you likely go to some meetings to support your life in recovery, to learn some skills? Absolutely. But your wheel of recovery, the one that I'm going to talk about, has more that you need to address. I have career or job training or whatever it is you want to do, right? And I say to this, get a job, any job, right? Financial wreckage. How many in treatment have financial wreckage they need to address? I remember myself, I still have a folder that has those little pieces of my past. And I look at them now and I'm proud of myself. Why? Because it was deep, right? And many people relate to this. I owed nearly $15,000 in back child support. I owed thousands and thousands of dollars to Pierce County Court, King County Court, City of Federal Way, City of Ruston, Department of Corrections, right? And that's not even talking about the collections that I had just for debt, credit card or whatever, medical, all of that, right? I had to start working on that. And I couldn't do that just sitting in recovery, just, focusing on recovery in that isolated term. I had to get a job. I had to get busy. I had to start working, right? That's the only way that I've been able to get to the point I'm at today. So I say, get a job, any job. And if you want to go into a career, if you have an area of work you want to learn, whether it's a trade school that you need to go to a trade school or go get a degree, I don't care what you want to do. Find someone who's in that position and ask them how they did it. Ask them the steps that they took to get to where they are. You might be surprised. They might even be willing to mentor you and support you. I'm huge on mentorship. I'm huge on having good people in your circle of influence. Pay attention to your physical and mental health, friends. This is old school, right? I've been around long enough. Old school, it's like, how do you find a 12-step group in any community, right? And it used to be, you just drive around and look for people outside smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee. Well, we're in the year 2025, so now it's similar but different. Well, you go around, you look at groups of people standing outside of a room or building, a church, whatever it is, vaping and drinking energy drinks. So consider this. If the first things you're putting in your body, very first thing in the morning, are caffeine and nicotine and sugar, and that's all you put in your body for the first good part of the day, don't be surprised that you can't handle the normal stress of the day. So I always say this, I'm not a pillar of physical health. It's balance, friends. Consider balance in those areas, right? Consider balance in what you're putting in your body, what you're consuming, because that has a direct physiological effect on your physical and mental health and your recovery. And I say this to my guy friends when I go to an all-male treatment center, go see a counselor. Get some help. I'm a survivor of abuse of all kinds. I lived in a house with a single mom raising four of us, 60s, 70s, 80s. And this is not something that I'm proud of to say. It sucks. But all of us suffered abuse at the hands of our many dads of the week, our biological fathers, and our mother, right? And our mother suffered her own abuse. Physical, neglect, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, all of it. And treatment was great. I've been to treatment twice, and I love treatment in the regard that it kind of gave me that reboot. But the work in those areas of my life that I really needed to work on, my views on sex, my views on older men, my views on fatherhood, motherhood, all of that really came after treatment and in the early years of my recovery with a lot of help from mental health professionals. So seek that out. Talk to your doctor, right? Depression's real. Anxiety's real. PTSD is real. It's not just some fluffy stuff. Talk to your physician. Medication can be highly helpful. I've been on medication along the way on differing levels. I take medication now for my anxiety and it's helpful, right? This is why I get frustrated when people badmouth medication-assisted treatment, right? They'll say, oh, medication-assisted treatment, that's just trading a drug for another drug. Well, that's garbage because it really helps a lot of people improve their life. And I say, well, stop taking your prescribed medication for your anxiety or your depression or any other mental health disorder, right? So alas, talk to a professional. This is where I interject. Make sure you're talking to professionals. Like our friends, they for sure can give us great advice along the way. But sometimes our friends can give us terrible advice because they don't know. They're not trained. They haven't learned about the differing medications that can be highly helpful, right? So pay attention to your physical and mental health. Family. How many have kids in the room? I always ask this question. How many have kids? Raise your hand. They're watching you. They're yearning for you to get healthy. They're wanting to see their parents in recovery, right? So do your work so that relationship can have a chance at healing. I always say, don't forget about that one person or two people, or if you had more in your family who really, maybe they held you accountable, but they were always there for you. What I see sometimes is people get into recovery and they gain their new recovery family, which is beautiful. It's a great thing. But sometimes here's what I see happen. Their family gets left to the curb. They get lost in recovery. Don't forget about your family, especially your children. Get involved in the community you live in. Volunteer, whether it's through a recovery-based organization or any other, a Rotary or a food bank or a pet shelter, whatever it is. Get involved in the community you live in. I'm all about networking. I'm all about, hey, I used to sit on a curb in Tacoma on an apartment step, and I used to sit there and be jealous of others. Oh, they're not getting, why don't I get what they get? Why can't I get lucky like that person gets? Why can't I get the girl or the job or the car like that? I wasn't putting myself in positions where I would get lucky. I get lucky all the time now. Why? Because I'm involved, I'm busy, I'm active. Get involved in the community you live in. This next thing I'm going to talk about, I think, is probably one of the most powerful tools you can use to your advantage to really increase the level of your life as a person in recovery, and it's your circle of influence. And so I want you to think about this for a second. This is psychology right here, right? Psychology 101. Here it is. I want you to think about the 4 or 5 people you talk to on a regular basis. Think about that. Who are those 4 or 5 people that I talk to? They talk to me. I take in information from them. I give them information. They influence me. I listen to them. I ask them advice, right? So think about those 4 or 5 people. You ready for this? Here it is. You are them. You are the sum of the 4 or 5 people you interact with on a regular basis. And so in my life today, I'm mindful of that, right? I surround myself with people who have goals. I surround myself with people who have a can-do attitude. I surround myself with people who I know are going to challenge me in ways that I want to be challenged. I surround myself with people who know me and know what I've said I want to achieve in life. People I can check in with. And so think about that for yourself. Think about those 4 or 5 people. You may need to switch it up, right? Post-treatment, great time to do it. Post-life reboot, great time to think about who are the 4 or 5 people. And I say this because you hear this. I'm all about myth busting, right? So that one of the myth busters was you're not powerless. You have so much say in your life, so much. That powerlessness gets used and abused in ways that I think it shouldn't. It can be a very helpful tool, but in ways that it shouldn't get used, I think it needs to stop. You have a lot of say in your life. You have it within you to do amazing things. And so here's another myth buster, the adage that gets thrown around, well, your friends who you were hanging out with when you were using and drinking, they weren't really your friends. Garbage. It's a myth. I have a friend from Tacoma. His name's Julio, and he and I had known each other since we were 12 years old. 11 or 12. I think 12. Right? And we had a lot of life experiences together. A lot. In and out of alcohol and drug use. We had jobs that we worked together. We had positive experiences. He was my friend. So flip the script on this. Just consider maybe my friend that, yeah, I've known this person my whole life. So yes, they were my friend, but maybe for this friend, I need to just have some distance for now. Once I'm on solid footing, maybe that's happened for me. I've had friends who I needed to distance myself from, but then they found their own path to life improvement, to recovery, to setting goals, and then we've come back together, right? So think about those 4 or 5 people you have in your life that do have an impact on you. You are the sum of the 4 or 5 people you interact with on a regular basis. And you've probably already gotten the gist of this. Get busy. Right? Again, I don't give you permission to leave treatment and sit in the room of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Smart Recovery, whatever you use, Celebrate Recovery, and just do recovery, right? Think about how you're going to earn a living, right? What's that going to look like? Don't wait, right? I always say this at this point. I say get busy, right? Don't get so overwhelmed that then you're like, oh, this is just too much, right? The first thing I would say is get strong people around you, that circle of influence. Do that, and then really start getting busy in ways that are going to support you moving forward, right? Hey, and one of the beautiful things that I've gained from living a life in recovery is the realization that all I've got is right now. Right? This 24-hour period is pretty much all I'm guaranteed. And I said this earlier, deal with your past, heal from your past, learn from your past, and then leave your past there. Don't get overwhelmed with thinking about what's going to happen next week, next month, or for sure a year from now. Do everything you can in each day to make your tomorrows better. That's what I'm all about. My wife and I live a very consistent, structured, healthy life in that, we plan things, we put things on our calendar, we strategize, right, for our tomorrows. But all we really have, friends, is right now. And so I want to do everything I can in each day to make my tomorrows a little better. So those areas, right, your work life, your family life, your health, your physical and mental health, key. Your financial situation, whatever it is for you, I want you to get busy living to improve those areas of your life. And I said this at the beginning, you have it within you to do amazing things. You can't tell me you don't. Listen, we all have our unique paths. We all have our unique stories. We could all tell our war stories, and mine is unique to me. And I've seen so many examples. Some don't even know this. There are over 25 million people in recovery in our society right now. Some who have had a little bit of wreckage and some who have had tons of wreckage who have turned it around. And like I said, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. So I say, if I can do it, hey, listen, friend, I know you can do it. Right? If you put your mind to it, if you take my challenge and you take that energy that you spent running and gunning and doing the deal, take that and flip it on its head. Flip it on its head and take that energy and put it into improving your life. Because you're worth it. You are 100% worth living an amazing life in recovery. And so I'm giving you some tools to do in this very short time period on this podcast that you can do. And healthy routines is something I've alluded to. I have a very strict, if I say that word, very consistent, very very much almost everyday routine that I do in the morning. One thing I do, and I want you to think about for yourself, is I get up and go to bed at nearly the same time every day. In fact, I've done it so long that I haven't needed an alarm clock in years. Your body needs consistent rest. So think about that for yourself. And treatment, that's when that gets rebooted, right? Because you're forced to go to bed, get up at the same time. Continue that. That one thing I can tell you, I've seen a dramatic improvement in just my mental health, but also your physical health. Your ability during the day to be able to get things done depends on a consistent sleep cycle. So I get up, and the first thing I do is, of course, I go down, get a little cup of coffee, but I open all the blinds and the curtains in our home, every one of them. Why? Because I want to let that natural light in the second that sun starts coming up. I've struggled with the kind of depression that keeps you in bed on days on end, and I think it was a counselor who gave me some of these techniques. I don't know where I learned them along the way. Most of them are borrowed, right? I'm not unique in that way, but I get up at the same time every day. I open all the blinds and the curtain, and then I make my bed every day. Every day. It's a little bit harder to get back into a made bed. Once that's done, dogs are helpful for this. I get Daisy and I get Johnny, and I go on a morning walk. I get outside first thing in the morning. And I'm doing all of these things before I even shower. Right? Then I come back and I get ready for the day. Healthy routines are critical to your success, critical to your desire, your goal of improving your life. So have those healthy routines. I have my circle of influence. That's a healthy routine thing right there, right? Having goals, having short and long-term goals, healthy routines, paying attention to what you're putting in your body. Like you know what I don't need and I don't drink except on a rare occasion? Energy drinks. I don't need them. I don't. Right? So for you, for yourself, for your unique, amazing self, think about healthy routines. Forward motion, forward motion, forward motion, my friends. Stay out of the past. Listen, if you tripped and fell yesterday, you tripped and fell. Learn from it, get up, and keep moving forward. I've experienced this in recovery. The knowing that, you know what, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect, right? There are some hard and fast things that are really going to trip me up. Like for me, the return to drinking and using of any kind, that's for me, is not going to go well, right? Giving up. I choose on a daily basis to keep trying, to keep moving forward. There may be some things in your life, career paths or relationship situation, depends on what it is, where you may need to go down a different road. Having that circle of influence will be really helpful for you, but keep moving forward always. My wife and I have been amazing about this in our marriage. We've had significant points along the way where we've went, you know what, this isn't working the way it is. And so this part of our life, whatever it was, I remember we were foster parents for a kid and it just didn't work. And we've always been a team. We're like, okay, we're going to keep moving forward. Keep moving forward with your life. Do the healing you need to do. Do the healing you need to do. And that's post-treatment, right? That is seeking counseling. That is talking to a trusted friend about real things, right? Educating yourself, reading. I haven't really alluded to this. Like some of my best progression forward, that forward motion, has been through educating myself on a term called family systems. It's actually what my undergraduate and graduate degrees are in. And I've learned so much. It's actually how I was able to forgive my mother, simply by reading books, right, on family systems or whatever area of your life that you want healing on. It can be really helpful to educate yourself. Now, I always ask this question, whose system involved, right? And what am I talking about? Well, are you involved with the court system? Are you involved with Department of Corrections? Do you have financial debt where you're involved with some system? Are you system involved? And I remember the conversation I had with an old guy years ago. I was system involved. I owed court systems. I owed back child support. I owed Department of Corrections, right? All these different systems. I had to jump through all these hoops. And I remember it was frustrating. It was really hard, right? because I had a job, I had these other responsibilities, but yet I was system involved. I had to do these checkoffs. And this old guy, Al was his name. He was from New York. He actually had the nickname New York Al. Really good dude. Another person in recovery. He pulled me aside one day. And we had gotten to know each other a little bit. And I trusted him enough, to kind of hear what he had to say. And he says, hey, and I try to do the New York accent. I'm not really good at it. Hey, now you say you don't like being system involved. Yeah, no, I don't. It sucks. And he's like, well, listen, I got something for you. And I'm thinking, oh man, is this guy going to give me a loan? This is going to be great. He's like, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do whatever you need to do to get out of those systems and then stay out. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, it just hit my brain. This has been almost 30 years ago. I'll never forget hearing this. And it just clicked in my brain. And he says, stop blaming the systems for you being involved. Listen, I'm the one that got myself in the system. Are the systems flawed? Absolutely. Does our criminal justice system need reform? Sure. But alas, in that time period for me, the only way out was for me to do what I needed to do to get out. And then he said, stay out. I'm like, oh my gosh. That clicked in my brain, and I hope it clicks in your brain. And the thing that I had to do is kind of take that blame out of my vocabulary in a lot of ways. I always give the caveat, if you've been a survivor of domestic violence or childhood sexual abuse or whatever, the adults in the room were to blame for that. The adult perpetrator who abused you, they are absolutely to blame for that. But my healing was on me, right? And I have a little different view on forgiveness, because some people say you have to do the work and forgive your abusers. And I'm like, I've done a lot of work. I've let go of what my abuser did to me. But I don't know if I ever will fully forgive him. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I've let it go. I don't let it affect me anymore in my life. You do the same. So going back to the system and being involved in a system, whether it's a court system or some type of system, do what you got to do to get out of those systems and then stay out. And in closing, I want to say that you are worth it. You are 100% worth the investment in you to improve your life. You can't tell me you can't. Why? Because I'm an example. My son is an example. My wife is an example. I know so many people who are examples of having lived a crazy, chaotic life in active addiction and now living amazing lives in recovery. And I think I could easily say the same thing about them that I say that we're not necessarily the smartest people in the room, but I think the one thing you have in your favor as a person in recovery or a person contemplating recovery is that we have a special skill. You ready? And it's that tenacity, that grit, that willingness to do what we need to do to get to where we want to go. So in closing, I want you to know you can do it. I believe in you, and I want you to believe in yourself. Love to all. As always, thanks for listening. Episodes are released twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. You can also follow me on my other social media channels in the description.